let's talk about how you guys are incorporating a Bitcoin strategy. Can you or Jamie walk me through that?
The fact that you're familiar with the way what Michael Saylor did, I mean, we're taking a page out of his book, and he's been, educating people on how to. You saw him, recently. He's pushing Microsoft to do the same, and unfortunately they said no to it. But so same thing. I went down the rabbit hole of listening to everything that guy said about it. He's very elegant in the way that he speaks about it. And Jamie, to his credit, saw it a while ago and has been trying to ring the bell for the cannabis industry. Like, hey, this industry's tough. Raising capital is very, very hard. And we're all waiting on these different catalyst events to hopefully turn the tide. And we believe that there's one that's already here, and it's Bitcoin. And there's been a bunch of other public companies that have already proven that this is a working strategy. And so, so what we're going to be doing, LEEF, is we're going to raise a $5 million bond. We're going to purchase close to $5 million worth of Bitcoin, hopefully in January. And we believe that Bitcoin is going to continue to go up in value, and our intent is to never sell the Bitcoin. And it's a balance sheet strategy, and it's like a way to improve your balance sheet and strengthen it, while at the same time we're going to stay focused on our mission to become the largest concentrate provider in the world. That's the goal of the company. So we've got our P&L strategy, which is we got to run a real business. We need to make products, sell products, increase our margins, and move into other states. And then at this, same time, now we've got this other oar in the water for our boat of something that is going to be highly valuable on our balance sheet. And if Bitcoin continues to do what it's been doing, you got your assets and liabilities. We think that our assets are going to start to far outweigh our liabilities here in the near future.
So this term or this concept, balance sheet strategy, is new to me. It's something I hadn't heard before. Before I listened to your space the other day, actually, and that's fascinating that you guys are taking a two-pronged approach. Obviously, you have your P&L strategy with your business, your core business. You're opening the cultivation next year. It sounds like you're expanding into a couple new states next year. So you have that side of the business, which is the core of obviously of what you do. But then you have this quote unquote balance sheet strategy, which is, I mean, in my mind, truly fascinating that you guys are buying this asset, this new asset class, and leveraging that on your balance sheet to improve, basically improve, your numbers, so that so then what? So you buy it and you don't sell, and then it helps you raise capital. It helps you, what is a year or two from now, if it doubles, what does that mean for the company from a balance sheet perspective?
Jamie, why don't you take it?
Sure. Happy to. It's great. So a balance sheet strategy, if I can just back up, it's a new model, right? I mean, the companies that generate an extraordinary amount of cash, we'll call it the Magnificent Seven, the seven companies that carry the whole S&P. They do have a balance sheet strategy, and it's to buy short-term U.S. Treasuries at anywhere from a 1% to 5% coupon, and it's to preserve the debasement of the dollar over a short period of time. So let's say they get a 5% coupon on their Treasuries, and the dollar's debasing at 7%. They're offsetting the reduction of purchasing power. And so that's a traditional balance sheet strategy, right? And then, these big companies, they're not going to let that cash sit on the balance sheet. They're traditionally, cash is a liability, even though it's in the asset column on a balance sheet. They're either going to use it. Any company with cash is going to do three things. They're either going to repurchase their stock, right? They're going to acquire companies, or they're going to issue dividends. That's the playbook for every single public company with cash on the balance sheet that is generating cash, accumulating cash. You get that off the balance sheet as quick as possible. This is the first time that the whole what Michael Saylor has put into the hearts and minds of executives is cash, money, capital is energy. And when you release that energy off of your balance sheet, you become more vulnerable, right? COVID, I mean, he obviously went on this Bitcoin treasury strategy when COVID hit, and it was
2020,
August of 2020, and it was due to an existential crisis about he felt as though he is never going to advance as a company. He had $500 million of cash on the balance sheet. He recognized that the U.S. Was printing at a rate never seen before, and that his $500 million was not going to debase at 7% per year. It was going to debase at 20, 30, 40% over the short term due to the amount of quantitative easing that was happening. So what he did is he deployed this balance sheet strategy, put it into a capital asset that will grow over time. He is preserving this energy for the company. Instead of purchasing another company, instead of buying his shares back, instead of issuing dividends, he is keeping that energy in the company to fortify it. And what it's shown is that obviously the net asset value, right, which is assets minus liabilities, NAV on your balance sheet, grows at an extraordinary rate. Well, historically it has. For him it did. For the companies that have adopted it, it has. And the shareholders are willing to pay a premium for shares of companies that have fortified themselves with Bitcoin, that are preserving the energy, the financial energy of their company, because they are now fortified. They can withstand any event. And then how shareholders are measuring the value or a metric, a KPI, that is becoming ubiquitous for companies with a Bitcoin treasury reserve is your Bitcoin yield, which is how much Bitcoin do we have per share, and is that increasing? So Bitcoin yield is number of Bitcoin over shares in a defined period of time, right? And if that grows, then the value of those shares are growing, and the shareholders are willing to pay a premium on that value. So that's a balance sheet strategy, or I should say a Bitcoin balance sheet strategy in a nutshell. It's something I've watched 60 plus companies now adopt. Those are the KPIs and metrics we've adopted. And it's a pretty straightforward strategy. Accumulate Bitcoin, hold it. And I think the ways in which we are going to utilize that Bitcoin on a go-forward basis, it's obviously exciting. I mean, I think fundamentally we all know that if Bitcoin goes up, the stock price goes up, the volatility, which we want, goes up, because that creates an options market. It creates opportunity to make money. But there's all these other ways that we don't even know where the opportunity is. I mean, we have some ideas, right? It's designated as property. You can lend against it. Companies that have Bitcoin on the balance sheet can use it as a source of capital just by lending. You don't even have to sell it, right? In the future, if macro markets tighten up. And I think there's going to be yield opportunities, and there are already, but I think most people that have, seized the opportunity for yield in the market have found themselves in tough situations, and we could name all the exchanges that offer yields and no longer exist. But what we are going to see is the big banks, especially with SOB 121, when that passes from the Trump administration. I mean, keep in mind, that passed the House, that passed the Senate, and Joe Biden vetoed it. And now we have a red wave that is pro-crypto. There's no doubt that's going to pass. The banks, the big banks, right, want to hold Bitcoin. They don't want to buy U.S. treasuries. The big people that are going to hold U.S. treasuries now are the stablecoin companies like Tether. They're the biggest purchasers of short-term treasuries. So they're going to prop up the treasury market. JP Morgan and Chase and Wells Fargo are going to have their stable coins. They're going to they want to custody Bitcoin for these Fortune 500 companies, and they are going to offer a yield on them. So that's just another, opportunity on the horizon for Bitcoin. I think there's a lot of ways we don't even know, we're kind of like at the base layer of the internet. We don't even understand all the opportunities we're going to have. What we know, this is Cyber Manhattan in 1600. It's very valuable property. Sovereign nations want to own it. It's a power network. It's a digital asset power network. And right now is an asymmetric opportunity to fortify your nation, your company, your state, your municipality, and your personhood with Bitcoin.
Yeah, what's interesting is, I don't know if it's every 10 years or 20 years, a new financial product comes along, right? A new asset class, right? There weren't always mutual funds. There weren't always ETFs. These things were invented, right? And so this seems like the next evolution of that, like the next version of a mutual fund or ETF, or, a financial instrument, really, which is, truly fascinating. Like you said, we're at the beginning of all of this. We don't know where it's going to evolve from here. My question for you guys is, a couple questions actually. Do you think there's going to be a race for accumulation? Do you think, knowing that there's a limited supply, that whatever hedge funds, pension funds, nations, countries, our banks are going to rush to accumulate Bitcoin, knowing that there's only so much out there?
I think we all know that's well underway. I think it would have been a slower process if Biden won. It still would have happened, but there was, obviously party resistance. And now that we have a red wave, I think it's kind of allowing the floodgates to open. And I just go back, like the biggest catalyst is undoubtedly sovereign nations. I think Fortune 500 companies and even microcaps and privates would have adopted Bitcoin on the balance sheet as a place of capital safety. But now it's analogous to gold. What sovereign country is going to control this network, right? Who is going to be? We control the gold network, right? We control gold. The U.S. is the largest gold owner, right? We house it at Fort Knox, and we papered over it 1,000 times, and it's manipulated, quite honestly, by the U.S. by being papered over from the U.S. banks. But the fight right now this is a decentralized energy network that that sovereign nations understand there's going to be a fight to control it. And what I mean by control is who's going to be the first, who's going to own the most of it. Who's going to be the first in that owns the most? We own the most gold. Do we want to own the most Bitcoin? Of course we do. It's the future digital energy network. So there's everything else I mentioned already, and there's no doubt that's why Michael Saylor's issuing ATMs, right, at the market equity, and it's keeping the stock price down. But he thinks it's worth it because it's the race. How quick can I accumulate? 5% of the supply. How quick can I get to 1 million Bitcoin? And any amount of dilution is worth it for him because this is a long-term play.
He's already over 1%, right?
He's over. He's trying to get 5%. He's trying to get to 1 million Bitcoin.
Yeah. But he's over 1 and close to 2, if I recall.
He's very close to 5%. He's got 450 plus.
Oh, he's already at 5?
Yeah,
oh, wow.
Not quite. 5% would be. Well, I'm sorry. Is that right? Yeah, right around 500,000. And he's just shy of that.
Oh, wow.
It's incredible.
I think that.
So,
I was just going to add something to it because I used this in a conversation with my kid last night. I was explaining. We were talking about Bitcoin. She made she put her $800 piggy bank into Bitcoin, and
nice.
And we were just talking about what inflation was, and I think one of the things that's happening right now, to answer your question, do I think that there's going to be a race to purchase? Yeah, I think absolutely. I think that's why you're seeing the price go up, and I think that's just going to start to compound if some of these catalyst events end up happening. If this Loomis bill goes through, I think that what that does is that tells the world that the U.S. government believes that, in my opinion, it's basically saying that Bitcoin is more valuable than the dollars that we have. And I think that's going to open it up to where all of these other sovereign nations are going to be green lighted to okay, then we should do the same thing. And there's only 21 million coins, of which 19 million roughly have been issued. So you got 2 million more coins that are going to come out from now until 2140-ish, I guess is what the estimated year is. And so it's got a long runway, and that's the difference between Bitcoin and a lot of these other, to my understanding, a lot of the other cryptocurrencies is it's scarcity. It's limited. No one owns it.
Right.
Unlike gold, it's the scarcest digital asset, and it's the scarcest asset. And that's why you see globally money funneling into it right now. And I think that like money has this like organic way of trying to find like where can it stay alive or be preserved, right? And like to use an example in the cannabis industry, right? This industry is difficult to navigate, tons of rules, laws all over the place that makes it challenging to be profitable. And like you watch like people get very creative in the way that they try and preserve the dollars that they have, whether it's like, oh, I'm going to create a company that's going to have my payroll is going to cycle through it and all that. And it's all to preserve the money that we have. And I think that what's going on right now is that globally, I think COVID really kicked everyone in the ass when this happened, is that when all the QE, everyone's stuffed into their house, they're told what to do, the printing press goes berserk, it all of a sudden, like there's this awakening happening right now where the money is trying to find a place to survive. And Bitcoin is turning into that. And that's why you see it's a global thing, and it's just people from all over the world are going into it. So I think that it continues to happen for a very long time.
Yeah, I agree. And I think 2025 is going to be absolutely bananas as far as the crypto industry goes. So question for you guys, if the U.S. enters the Bitcoin race and all these other, Fortune 500s and hedge funds and all the other sovereign nations, what do you see happening to the volatility within Bitcoin? Because last cycle topped out around 70 for a nice easy round number, dropped all the way down to 20, which is, roughly a 70% drop. Do you see that amount of volatility going away? Because anytime we get, a crazy dip, it's going to get bought up.
I'll give you my personal opinion, and then Jamie will say something a lot smarter than me.
Okay.
I think that if the U.S. government goes, all of these other countries are going to go. You've got states that are now saying that they're going to adopt the same strategy, cities, municipalities, pension funds. If that all happens, I think that the dips that have historically happened every 3 years or so probably start to stabilize a little bit more. But to give ourselves some protection, the way that we're structuring this bond that we're raising, it's a 5-year deal, and the bondholder, the holders can't call the note if it does dip. So if it does, and I mean honestly, if it does, our hope is that we can come in behind and buy again, and
buy more.
More. And so you can't call the note. It gives us 5 years. We get through a halving cycle, and we strongly believe that in 5 years, the value of Bitcoin is going to be dramatically higher than it is today.
Yeah. Jamie?
Yeah, I would say due to the law of large numbers, we're going to see less volatility as the market cap grows. Now, historically, the volatility was due to leveraged positions, exchanges allowing 100x leverage,
right.
Hedge funds, crypto billionaires exercising, those leverage options. That is now that due to the law of large numbers, right now that's when we're talking about a $1 trillion market cap. We just entered $2 trillion. Obviously, as that grows, it's harder to shift that number. When you look at who's entering positions now, I think the traders will always be there. Don't get me wrong. There's but it's long-term capital storage. Sovereign nations aren't going to sell their Bitcoin. Pension funds aren't going to sell their Bitcoin. Fortune 500 companies, maybe, but it'll be slower, right? They're not the retail market. They're there for capital preservation as well. I know the state of Florida, the state of Pennsylvania, I just read the state of Ohio yesterday introduced a bill, I think it's Bill 703, to add a Bitcoin treasury. Like these are institutions that aren't selling, so but I will say, will Bitcoin be more will it have a 80% drawdown? No, probably not. I don't think it will. Will it be more volatile than the S&P? No doubt about it. And I think that's the advantage of it. And that's what it's one of the things that draws capital to it is, that volatility is good. It's lifeblood, it's energy, right? Niagara Falls is, an incredible energy network, right? And I think 5,000 people have died playing around Niagara Falls, right? If you don't know what you're doing, it's a pretty scary place. Well, it's also an energy network that has 2 gigawatts that's powering, parts of Canada and most of New York, right? So it's that volatility, that energy network is something to be harnessed. It's something to be captured. And it's good. It's good. And so that's Bitcoin. It is a market. It is a $2 trillion and likely going north dollar market that is the smartest, fastest, most reactive liquidity pool on the planet. It's open 24/7, 365. So like when the Japanese carry trade issue happened, I don't know, a few months ago, and the Bitcoin network's the first one to react. It's open. People can transfer their liquidity immediately. Where the stock market's Monday through Friday, 9:30 to 4:30, no weekends, excluding holidays. It's a slow and it's the past, right?
Right.
So we're always going to see more volatility in Bitcoin, and we should. It's healthy. It's the most reactive market that we have. So we want that. We even for LEEF, like if we can track closer to our volatility can track closer to Bitcoin volatility, that's a sign of health in our organization as well. And I think that's what every company wants. So will it be volatile? I think it's a relative answer. Yeah, it'll be more volatile. Will it have the same kind of drawdowns? No, as the market cap gets bigger, it will not draw down. It'll draw down less and less.
Yeah, and going back to something you said earlier about people selling or not selling, right? I think most institutions will think long and hard about selling Bitcoin. It'll be the last thing they sell because there'll be fear there, right?
Well
there'll be
said,
fear
Nick. Yes.
that if they do sell, they may not get an opportunity to buy it back, or at least it'll be like 2x of what they sold it for. So I am truly fascinated by Bitcoin and the adoption coming up in the next couple of years. And I don't know, I'm excited. I'm here for it. I'm 45 years old. I'm right there with you, Micah. And this is one of the most exciting things that I've been a part of. Like I miss the .com, I miss social media, but blockchain, crypto, Bitcoin, I am all in. So I'm really fucking excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you. I'm exciid for you guys.
That's
if I
cool.
can just harness that thought real quick and just put this out there, Bitcoin is hope, and it's hope. Michael Saylor's popular. Michael Saylor has hope.com, and it's all about Bitcoin, and he's just like put it out there so eloquently. And, I've written about this, and Mike has talked about this, and you're talking about your excitement. And Bitcoin is hope for the cannabis industry, right? It's hope for everyone, but for someone in Africa who doesn't have access to money, Bitcoin means a lot more to them than us here in the U.S. that have access to other capital, storage vehicles. And in the same way, man, industries that have been marginalized from the banking industry, from capital environments, Bitcoin means so much more to us than, Microsoft. That's why they didn't vote for it. Yeah. Right. So I just want to embody that, man. I appreciate what you're saying. We're excited too. Bitcoin is hope. That's why cannabis needs Bitcoin. And it's an exciting moment.